So the postman was kind of bad. It was a flop across the board. So what did Kevin Costner do? He repossessed himself, and he made subtly one of the best westerns of the 2000s. It's Open Range. Everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to my Road to the Horizon. In honor of Horizon and American Saga, I'm covering all three of Kevin Costner's previous directorial efforts. That includes Dances with Wolves, The Postman, and now Open Range. If you want to check out my reviews for The Postman and Dances with Wolves, playlist link will be in the eye in the right-hand corner. Go check those reviews out. But for now, let us talk about Open Range. It was released in 2003. It is based on the book The Open Range Men by Lauren Payne, and along with Costner starred Robert Duvall, Michael Gambon, Diego Luna, and Annette Bening, among others. It tells the story of two men named Boss and Charlie, played by Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner, respectively. They, along with their hired hands, are open range cattlemen. They have a herd of cattle that they tend to and take care of, and they don't really bother anyone. They don't want violence. They just want to make their way in the West until they inadvertently stumble into the wrong town. The town of Harmonville, to be specific, that is owned by an Irish immigrant named Denton Baxter, played by Michael Gambon. If that name sounds familiar, he is the guy who took over for the Albus Dumbledore role after the tragic passing of Richard Harris. Kind of similar to another Kevin Costner Western, Silverado, Harmonville is Baxter's town. He has everything tied up, like he rules the town with an iron fist, including the law. And he hates open range cattlemen, especially Boss and Charlie. But when Boss and Charlie try to take the high road, Baxter goes lower and makes things very personal. And so, Boss and Charlie basically say,
"Of course you realize this means war."
I couldn't find much on the production of this movie, but I had to figure that the Postman's failure must have weighed heavy on Kevin Costner's mind, because this feels very much like a back to basics kind of movie. The budget on this movie was only $22 million. Dances with Wolves could technically count as a Western, but Open Range is the first proper Western that Kevin Costner had a direct hand in. Silverado, he was a co-star in, but this was the first one, like pure six-shooter symphony, that kind of Western. And this movie is great. I heard much about this. I didn't know what to expect, and I came out of it saying to myself, that was better than I was ever anticipating. I think I prefer Dances with Wolves a little bit more, but this was a very enjoyable movie overall. First and foremost, while Costner is very good as Charlie, the star of the movie by a lot is Robert Duvall, who plays Boss. In my research, I found that Costner said in an interview promoting the film that Duvall was the first and only actor he ever considered for the Boss character. He even would go so far as to say that if he didn't get Duvall, he wasn't going to make the movie at all. That's dedication to your casting choices right there. The two have a great chemistry together. They both have, I guess, without spoiling anything, shared trauma together. They're both Civil War veterans. They were both part of a, quote, special squad during the Civil War, on the Union side. And that could mean a lot of things. The movie doesn't go too deep into it. The most you get out of it is a flashback on the part of Charlie that just takes him out for a good few seconds. The thing that you need to know, the main headline, is that Charlie has PTSD. He really is feeling his time in the war, and kind of similar to John Dunbar in Dances with Wolves, he just wants to live out the rest of his days as peacefully as possible. Well, in the case of Charlie, that peace doesn't last that long. Michael Gambon is great as Denton Baxter, but his little deputy, played by James Russo, yeah, he's like the real teeth of the villains here. They're both equally sinister, but really the joy of the movie is just Boss and Charlie going up against Baxter and his crew, both in dialogue and in shootouts. Annette Bening is also good in the movie. There is a love story between Charlie and Annette Bening's character. There's a part of me that kind of wanted to see more involved with that because there's this whole plot line of will they, won't they, on especially on the part of Charlie, because he assumes first of all that she is married and doesn't want to get involved with that, but then realizes that he's got issues and doesn't want to go too deep into that well. But then he realizes that, yeah, that is the woman for her. It's a little like, come on, just get to the romance part of it. I guess I just didn't like how that was particularly paced, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. There is not much action in this, but when there is action, especially at the ending, it's legitimately really good stuff. You'll know it when you see it, but the big action scene at the end begins where Kevin Costner just does this.
You the one killed our friend?
That's right.
There's no monologue, there's no dude saying, "Let me tell you about my life story." No, Kevin Costner just like, "You killed my friend?" Bang. Just insane stuff. And the rest of the fight is a lot of fun. Really, there's a part of me that just wonders why this movie isn't talked about more often. Like, everybody talks about Dances with Wolves as Kevin Costner's best movie, and I would argue that as well, but Open Range, I think, is just as good in certain areas. You know what? I'm going to give this movie an amazing grade. This was far better than I could have ever anticipated. It's not really as epic as Dances with Wolves, but it really didn't need to be. It felt very much like a bare bones, straight to the point Western. It felt like in a different era, John Ford might have directed it. I hear this movie is coming to Tubi very soon, so do yourself a favor and watch it. It's not Postman length, it's not 3 hours. It's a neat and crisp 2 hours and 18 minutes, which is something I thought I would never say, but in the context of Kevin Costner movies, 2 hours 18 is like 90 minutes. I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of Open Range? If you've seen it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And thank you for watching me for this Road to the Horizon. I do plan on seeing Horizon: An American Saga this coming weekend. I've been hearing good to great things about it, and some reviews that are kind of mixed. So I'm going into it with an open mind. But really, you got one bad movie in The Postman, and you got two really good movies in Dances with Wolves and Open Range. So Kevin Costner as a director has a pretty good track record, all things considered. But as far as my next road to, well, you don't have to wait too much longer for that. It involves one of the more bigger movies coming out in the year. And in case you don't know, well, here's a clue.